The early morning sun crept over the horizon, casting a pale orange glow across the endless stretch of fields. The world was just waking up. Roosters crowed, a few cows lowed in the distance, and the air smelled faintly of dew and hay. Clara stepped down from the back of the dusty pickup truck, clutching a battered metal bucket and a broom that had seen better days. Her boots sank into the soft earth, and before she could even take a full breath, the laughter started. "Look at her. She's perfect for the barn. She already looks like she belongs there." One of the girls cackled. Another added, "Don't forget to feed the pigs, Clara. They'll think you're one of them." The truck roared to life as the girls kept laughing, their cruel voices fading into the distance along with the dust their tires kicked up. Clara stood still for a moment, frozen, her fingers tightening around the handle of the bucket. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears win. They thought this was funny, sending her to clean some old rancher's barn as a joke. But she wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Taking a deep breath, Clara looked up at the barn that loomed ahead of her. The red paint was peeling, the roof sagged a little, and the big wooden doors looked like they hadn't been opened in years. A hawk circled high above, and the sound of a windmill creaking in the distance filled the air. It was quiet here, the kind of quiet that made her feel both small and safe. She pulled her scarf tighter around her shoulders and walked toward the barn. The moment she opened the doors, the smell of hay, animals, and dust hit her like a wall. Dust motes floated lazily through the beams of light cutting in from gaps in the roof. The floor was layered with straw, old mud, and scattered tools. Everything was a mess, but it was the kind of mess that could be fixed. Clara rolled up her sleeves. Her arms were soft, her palms unused to this kind of work, but she was determined. She filled her bucket from the water pump outside, her reflection rippling in the cold water as she worked the handle. It was hard, harder than she'd expected, but with every pump, she felt a strange kind of strength rise in her chest. She wasn't just the obese girl here. She was just a girl with a job to do. Inside the barn, she started with the stalls. She shoveled out the old hay, her back aching almost immediately. She brushed down the wood, scrubbing at the grime that had settled over the years. Every few minutes, she'd stop to catch her breath and look around, at the horses shifting in their stalls, at the soft light slipping in through the boards, at the world that seemed completely separate from the people who mocked her. After an hour, her hair clung to her forehead with sweat. Her hands were red, her arms trembling, but she kept going. Something inside her refused to stop. Maybe it was anger, or pride, or just the simple desire to prove them wrong. She found a rusty brush and started cleaning the old horse tack. The leather had dried and cracked, but she worked oil into it until it gleamed again. She swept the floors, gathered the scattered nails and ropes, and stacked the hay neatly in the corner. Every motion was a small victory. Every scrape and bruise meant she was doing something real. When she finished one section, she stood back and admired her work. For the first time in a long while, she smiled, a small, tired smile that reached her eyes. Then a low voice startled her from behind. "What in the blazes are you doing in my barn, miss?" Clara jumped and spun around, her heart hammering. Standing in the doorway was a tall man, broad-shouldered and sun-tanned, with gray at his temples and eyes like dark coffee. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, showing strong forearms. Dusted with hay, and a wide-brimmed hat shaded his face. I was told to clean it," Clara stammered, clutching the broom like a shield. "As a chore." He stepped inside, his boots crunching softly on the straw. "By who?" Clara hesitated, unsure what to say. Her throat tightened, but she managed. "Some friends. From town. Ethan Graves." She recognized him now. The rancher everyone talked about in hushed tones. A man of few words but plenty of respect. The one who ran this land alone after his parents passed, who'd built his ranch from nothing. He glanced around, taking in the spotless stalls, the swept floor, the neatly arranged tools. "You did all this?" Clara nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I'll leave if you want me to." But Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked further in, running a hand along the clean stall door, inspecting the polished tack. "You been at this since morning?" "Yes, sir," she said softly. "I just wanted to finish what I started." There was something about the way she said it, quiet, humble, but full of conviction, that made him pause. Most people he hired quit after an hour, complaining about the smell or the work. But here was this girl, sent as part of some cruel joke, and she'd done more in half a day than some men did in a week. Ethan studied her face. Red from the heat, sweat on her temples, a streak of dirt across her cheek, but her eyes were steady. There was no anger, no self-pity. Just resolve. "Who sent you here?" he asked again, his tone softer now. Clara looked down at her hands. "It doesn't matter," she said quietly. "I'll leave now. Thank you for letting me clean it." She turned toward the door, her heart sinking. Maybe she'd done all this for nothing. Maybe she'd walk home, covered in sweat and hay, and still be a joke. But before she could step outside, Ethan's deep voice stopped her. "Hold on." She froze and looked back. He was watching her. Not with mockery, not with pity, but with something else. Something like understanding. "You ain't goin' anywhere," he said finally. "Not until we talk." Clara blinked, uncertain. "Sir." He nodded toward the bench by the wall. "Sit for a minute. You've done enough for now." She hesitated, then obeyed, setting down her broom. Her legs felt heavy as she sat, but her heart was strangely light. Ethan leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "You've got more grit than half the folks I know. Don't let anyone tell you different." She didn't know how to answer that. No one had ever said something like that to her before. Outside, the sunlight spilled across the fields, painting everything gold. Inside the barn, the air felt different now, not just dusty and old, but alive, full of quiet respect. Clara sat there, her hands trembling just slightly, as the weight of his words settled over her. For the first time, someone had looked past her body, past the cruel jokes, and seen her strength. The afternoon sun hung low over the wide Texas sky, painting the clouds in deep strokes of orange and violet. The air was heavy with the scent of hay, horses, and dust, the smell of hard work and open fields. Clara sat on an old overturned bucket near the corral, her palms raw and blistered, her dress damp with sweat. The bucket creaked beneath her, but she was too tired to move. Ethan Graves stood nearby, leaning against the wooden fence, his hat tilted slightly forward to block the sun. He was silent, the kind of man who didn't waste words unless they mattered. His gaze wasn't unkind, just thoughtful, as if he were trying to fit together a puzzle that didn't quite make sense yet. "So they sent you here as a joke," he said at last, his voice slow and deliberate, like a man chewing over something that didn't sit right. Clara nodded, her eyes fixed on the dirt beneath her boots. "They thought it would be funny. I was supposed to come back crying. Maybe they were going to film it." Ethan let out a low, humorless chuckle. "Guess the joke didn't land the way they planned." Clara looked up at him. The sunlight caught the faint gray in his beard and the lines around his eyes. He didn't look like someone who laughed much, but there was something in his expression, a quiet anger that wasn't directed at her, but at what had been done to her. "They've always done things like that," Clara said softly. "Since school. They think I don't care, but I do. I can't change what I look like." She tried to smile, but it came out sad. "I thought maybe if I just worked hard enough, people would stop seeing me as a joke." Ethan's jaw tightened. People can be cruel when they're small on the inside. They'll find any excuse to make someone else smaller than them. She didn't reply. The breeze rustled through the grass, and somewhere in the distance a horse snorted. The moment stretched between them, quiet, but full of something unspoken. Finally, Ethan pushed himself off the fence and walked closer, his boots crunching on the dry earth. "You did a good job in there," he said. "Better than most of my hired hands. That barn hasn't looked that clean since my mama was alive." Clara's head lifted. "Really?" He nodded. "Really. You've got grit, girl. You don't quit when things get hard, and that's worth more than a dozen lazy men with clean boots." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her classmates, not her teachers, not even her own family. Everyone always talked about what she wasn't. Too big, too quiet, too strange. Ethan, though, was talking about what she was. Strong, capable, gritty. "Thank you," she whispered. "But I don't want to cause trouble. I'll leave before the others come back." Ethan tilted his head. "Leave? After all that work?" She hesitated. "They'll just laugh more if they see me still here." He frowned. straightening up. You think I care what a bunch of brats think? You've got nothing to be ashamed of. They do. Clara looked at him, uncertain how to respond. Ethan wasn't just defending her. He sounded genuinely angry, not the kind of anger that explodes, but the kind that simmers deep down, the kind that comes from seeing too much injustice in the world. You shouldn't have to get used to being treated that way, he said firmly. You're better than that. The words hit her harder than he probably meant them to. For a second, her eyes stung, and she had to blink the tears back. I don't even know what to say, she murmured. You don't need to say anything, he replied. Just don't let them break you. Folks like you, the ones who work hard, who don't quit, they're the ones who keep the world turning. He took off his hat, ran a hand through his hair, then looked at her again. I'll tell you what, he said slowly. If you want to stay, I'll pay you honest work for honest labor. Barn needs more care, fences need fixing, animals need tending. You'll earn your keep fair and square. Clara blinked in surprise. You'd hire me? Ethan nodded. I'd be a fool not to. But, the others can mind their own business, he said sharply. You've proved more in one day than they ever will by laughing behind your back. For a long moment, Clara just stared at him. She'd never expected kindness from someone like him, a man who had every reason to send her away. Yet here he was, standing in the golden light of the evening, giving her something she hadn't felt in years, respect. She smiled faintly. I'd like to stay, sir. If you really mean it. I do, he said simply. And you can drop the, sir. Name's Ethan. Clara, she replied softly. Clara, he repeated, testing the sound of it. All right then, Clara, you start tomorrow morning, sunup. Think you can handle that? She laughed. A small, nervous laugh that felt strange but good. I think I already did today. Ethan grinned, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Fair point. As they walked back toward the barn, the sky deepened into pink and violet. The air cooled, and the horses nickered softly in their stalls. Ethan handed her a tin cup of water from the pump, and she drank it gratefully, the cold liquid easing her dry throat. When she handed it back, he said quietly, You know, Clara, people'll try to put you in a box your whole life. Tell you what you can and can't do. But boxes are for things that don't move. You're not one of those things. She met his eyes, calm, steady, and serious, and nodded. I think I understand. Good, he said, putting his hat back on. Now, I'll walk you back to the road. Those girls might be waiting, and I don't want them thinking they've won. And he did. The same girls who dropped her off earlier were waiting by the fence, leaning on their truck, smirking when they saw her. Well, look who's still here, one of them sneered. Didn't run home crying. Before Clara could answer, Ethan stepped forward, his tall frame blocking their view of her. His voice was calm, but his words carried like thunder. You girls think sending someone here as a joke is funny, he said. You think hard work's something to laugh at. The girls froze, their smirks faltering. Next time you send someone to my barn, he continued, make sure it's because they've got her work ethic, not because you're too small-minded to see what real strength looks like. Silence. Not one of them dared to respond. Ethan tipped his hat slightly, a gesture of quiet authority, then turned back to Clara. Come on, he said. You've got better things to do than waste time on fools. Clara followed him, her heart racing, not from fear this time, but from something powerful and new. Pride. As the truck's engine roared behind them, she didn't look back. The laughter that once haunted her seemed far away now, swallowed by the wind and the setting sun. When she glanced up at Ethan walking beside her, his silhouette framed by the fading light, she felt something shift inside her, a quiet strength that had been there all along, now finally free.